Whether or not you realize it, if you're a jewelry designer or a product maker or anyone selling a physical item, you need to be a good copywriter or understand why good copywriting is important and essential. If you don't have this nailed down, you are going to always struggle writing blog content. You're going to struggle writing email subject lines that get open. You'll struggle stopping the scroll on Instagram or on your social media. At the end of the day, great hooks and great copy are the thing that converts people from looky-loos to buyers. So if you're uncertain about how to write copy and how to actually connect with your audience in a way that is authentic and fun and playful while also staying true to your brand, well, I've got a great episode for you today. Hey there, I'm Tracy Matthews. I'm the author of The Desired Brand Effect, Stand Out in a Saturated Market with a Timeless Jewelry Brand. I'm also the Chief Visionary Officer of Flourish and Thrive and the host of the Thrive by Design podcast. And I help jewelry and product makers grow from 0 to 6 figures or multiple 6-figure sales using my methodology. And I'm super excited to have an amazing guest on the show today. Her name is Reese Spykerman. She is a digital strategist, a copywriter, and so much more. And she's going to talk about how to help you improve your copywriting strategies with simple ideas that'll stop the scroll and get better conversions for your jewelry or product brand. Let's dive in to today's episode. I am so excited to welcome Reese Spykerman back to the show. Reese, thanks for being here today.
I'm so excited to be talking with you again. We had such a fun conversation last time and some other times, so I know today is slated to be just as good.
It's going to be amazing. We're going to be talking about copywriting, and I think that everyone could use a dose of copywriting inspiration and tips to improve their copy on their website, because copy can do a lot of things for you, including sell, right?
It can, and I think it's often overlooked by people. I also think that people don't understand how important it is. They put up the words, they think that the words will sell, and there's actually really an art and a science to this that we're going to dig into today.
I'm so excited about it. So I had you on the show about website conversions a while ago. We'll also link that episode because Reese is brilliant with conversions on your website and e-commerce and all the things. I was part of her e-commerce summit. What was the name of it again? Because you're going to have it again. The Commerce Club.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
awesome.
It was great.
Get on the wait list for the next time because the interviews that she does are really, really good and so much to learn from that. So for people who didn't listen to that first episode, why don't you give us a quick rundown of your background and experience?
Sure. My background is I went to school for journalism. And when I graduated, I really wasn't that thrilled about getting a job in the media, even though I had a really strong writing background. And I eventually decided I want to work for myself. And I started designing websites for businesses, small and then slowly bigger and bigger. And what I found was that there was this issue where people really wanted their websites to be pretty, but that wasn't necessarily selling for them. Mm-hmm. And I kind of went down into this rabbit hole of what does it take to persuade people visually, and what does it take to persuade people with your words, like both together. And my website designs evolved to be more oriented towards how do we convert people? Like, how do we move them on that path? And that's what you and I talked about quite a bit in the last episode that I was on. But there's another whole side to it, which is the copywriting aspect. And I bring that as well into my work. And I think that's one of the things that will set me apart from a lot of other people in the industry is I've got both that like design background and that conversion optimization point of view, but I also can do the copywriting.
So you don't design websites anymore, do you?
Not if I can help it.
You just coach people on what to do the right way. Oh my gosh, you were hilarious. The look on your face, if you're listening to this, you're not going to see it, but the look on Reese's face was so funny when she did that. Just like, Anyways.
I hated designing them after a while. They are really hard to design. Like,
yeah.
You know what, Tracy, what happened is I was doing the design and the development. It was too much. So I got away from doing the development, and I found people still were very insistent on, I want my logo this big. I want this thing like pretty. And they get very fussy about how it looks. And I'm like, do you want this to sell for you or not? So finally, I just got away from doing the hands-on design stuff.
It's true. But you know, it's interesting. I'm just going to take a little sidebar here because we're running Facebook and YouTube ads. And it's funny because the landing page that we have for Facebook ads does not work on YouTube. The YouTube ads have to be this like ugly white thing with just a title on it and opt-in. And it's interesting because what you're saying, but not that your websites, I'm sure, were beautiful, but it's funny because like, I was like, that is so ugly. No one's going to work, but it's totally working. And you just never know. Like you have to test things to see what's going to actually get people to take that next step.
I'm so glad you brought that up because so much of it is about context, and sometimes you don't know till you go into it. But what we do know, and you probably like found out through what you were doing, the YouTube market is in general very different than say the Facebook market. And so you have to, it's so weird. The stuff that will work on YouTube as an ad or a landing page, completely different than Facebook, is bizarre to me too.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting part is like, Jason is my, he's my boyfriend, but he's also doing some consulting for me right now and working in operations for my business. But he also has a really strong marketing degree. He's been pushing me for like a year. We got to get YouTube ads up. So we finally do. And he's like, we're getting that, like the conversion with the regular landing page was so expensive. I'm like, I can't keep running these. I'm getting like 2 conversions for $100. It's too expensive. And he's like, well, let's try something else. We're going to try just a really simple landing page. I looked at it. I was like, that is terrible. I'm like, you're not a designer. He's like, I know, but it's working. Look, they're coming in at $5. Now I'm like, oh my gosh.
Whoa.
But the thing is that the premise is like, you have to understand the platform. We're getting a little bit off topic, but I'll bring it back. You have to understand the platform and what the purpose is. And on a YouTube ad, it's like a video platform. And so the videos are what sell what's happening next. So if your video has to sell, if the video doesn't sell, then the landing page doesn't have to sell. It just has to tell them what they're getting and get them to enter their details for the next step.
Yeah. And like, let's keep that as simple and distraction free as possible. Cause like you said, they've already been sold to getting there with the video. So do not get in their way, right? Like they're on a mission. Let's let them keep on their mission.
Yep. Okay. So let's dive into copywriting. So enough little YouTube stuff, but in your opinion, like how do you define copywriting and why is it so important to a jewelry or a product organization or someone who is trying to sell physical products that you might even wear on your body?
Yes. Great question. All right. I think of copywriting as in general, the words we use to help our customers, like do everything from, hey, you're in the right place to, would you like to buy this? Would you like to sign up for this? It's even things like telling our story. Copywriting, when it's done well, is your captions on Instagram. And it's, I think for people to understand it really easily is when you see a billboard, that's copywriting. When you watch a TV commercial, even though you're listening to the words, that's also copywriting. It's how we communicate in a persuasive way in order to get people either interested in the beginning in our product, and then later on, really thinking seriously about whether they're going to buy from us, and then finally pulling that trigger and buying. In every stage of the way, the copywriting is serving a different function, right? As you and I talked a bit about customer journey in our other episode, and copywriting also applies to that customer journey.
So true. And I was telling you before we even started recording on this interview that I just got off another interview with a jewelry brand called OXB. And their brand positioning and copy is all around the fact that they have sweat-proof jewelry. And so what they ended up doing is positioning their brand, and like most jewelry is sweat-proof. I just think that the general consumer doesn't understand that. But silver and gold vermeil, which are like lower price point kind of items, as opposed to like solid gold or gold filled, actually will tarnish when you sweat and all the obviously things that aren't made out of metal will like disintegrate when you're working out. like if you have a string tied jewelry or something like that. But I found that so interesting. And I was on their website, and the copy is like all designed to help like get someone into the journey. Like, you're a fitness junkie, but you don't want to take your jewelry off, kind of thing. So like, what do? You need jewelry that's sweat proof, which I thought was like fascinating. And like, I'm like, that's a really good idea.
It is. What I love is there's so much going on here. But one of the things that's going on, and you and I talked about this, is there's this intrigue, right? We get pulled in like, so is my jewelry not sweat proof? Or if you don't know this, or for people who assume it is, right? And there's this, it's like piquing that curiosity. But the other thing it's doing, and I think it's really a cool example for your jewelry maker audience, is it's talking about a transformation that people can expect, right? Like, and it's like, let's dig deeply into what that is. The transformation is that you don't have to worry about your jewelry again.
Yep. That's true. You never have to take it off. You can wear it in the shower, sweat in it. Like, it's going to hold up. It's going to stand the test of time, like all the things, right?
Yeah. Like, I've been taking off my rings at night, and I'm afraid of losing them because I don't want to get them all gunked up.
Yeah.
So
it's
people
smart.
don't think of jewelry as having a pain associated to it, but it does. It can. This is such a good example.
Yeah. Well, and you should take your rings off. I'm telling you that.
Okay. Thanks.
Like all lotioning up. It's like all like, why are my rings anymore? So good. All right. So let's get back to the copywriting piece. Like, what are some of the core pieces of copy that are going to stop readers in your tracks? You know, you talked about a little bit about a pattern interrupt briefly, but let's dive a little bit more into that.
Yeah. There's one that kind of is the queen that rules them all that I want to talk about today. And it's a headline. So let's break down what I mean so that people get it. Because you and I know, Tracy, like, we're in this world. But for everyone listening and watching, they might be like, okay, isn't that like ripped from the headlines, like the New York Times? So what does it mean for copywriting? You know, when you go to the grocery store or Target, and there's the checkout rack with the magazines, right? Mm-hmm. And you see Cosmo with like sex sessions that ended in the ER. You'll thank God it wasn't you. That's a headline, right? I mean, that pulls us in. Or we've got Women's World with lose 56 pounds by Memorial Day. Like, that's more straightforward. It's not quite as dramatic, and you don't have to be crazy dramatic like Cosmo about this, but those are headlines.
Yeah.
And we can use them in our websites, in our captions, even in our emails. My God, the way you write a subject line could be considered a headline. Mm-hmm. So because they're meant to grab our attention. And often when we think about, especially a website, you know, you'll go to a website and at the top of, say, the homepage, there'll be a larger text in a larger size than most of the rest. That's usually the headline. That's what we're talking about here. And they have a place in e-commerce. And I don't know, I'm really curious what you think, Tracy, but I have found there's a lot of advice out there for service industry and for B2B copywriting, but e-com is like left behind. So I kind of went on a mission for how do we do headlines for people with product-based businesses? Because they got to know too.
Well, I think that's really good. And I think we teach this in our community, in our Laying the Foundation program, and also in our Momentum students. And when we're working with someone to really optimize like their about page or even the homepage of their site, to have something where when someone lands there, they know who the jewelry is for. I think a lot of people rely on the look or the photography to actually do the selling, which it can over time. But the copy, I feel like, or the headlines, as you're saying, can be a really powerful tool to call out who your dream customer is or who the product's for, to dive in maybe to a pain point or, you know, a pique curiosity. Like, there's a lot of different ways that just a couple of words can change that. Like, what are some of the coolest things that you've seen for a product business? Am I putting you on the spot here?
You are, but that's okay. Like, we can roll with this. For product business in general, well, I'll tell you, this isn't not so much like one I've seen. I'm not great on the spot, but I'll tell you one I did for one of my clients. So they have this vegan coffee creamer that they made, and it was free from all kinds of junk, basically. So the headline we used for them on their landing page was never drink another unhealthy coffee again.
Oh,
and
good.
yeah, and it's doing it very much like the whole sweat proof jewelry, where people are leaning in and they're going, what's wrong with my coffee? Why is it unhealthy? Do you see where the idea behind what I just said, and even that sweat proof jewelry, is not to tell the whole darn story. It's just to get people to stick around and start reading what's below it because they want to know more.
Exactly. That's a great example. I'm glad you can think on your toes, girl. That was amazing.
Sometimes.
So tell me about some headline formulas that make it easier to write a headline.
Okay. First, I don't know about you, but I find it so much easier when I'm doing things if I have like a framework or a formula, almost like a Mad Lib to work from, because for me personally, it helps alleviate writer's block. So I'm not like faced with this blank page, like, crap, what do I write? What do I do? So that's part of why I came up with these different formulas, especially because so much of your audience and the people you work with are not copywriters, and they shouldn't have to be. So how can we make this easy for them, right? I've made a bunch of them, and there's one I would really love to share. Yeah, if that's cool with you, like break it down for you. Okay.
Go for it.
I'm calling this one the Step Into You formula, and it's really good, especially for jewelry. So that's why I'm pulling this one out, because I know who your audience is and I want to get them what they need. I don't have to tell you, Tracy, jewelry is a very emotional buying decision, right? Like, we will back it up sometimes with logic, but we're driven by emotion. And for me, and I'd love to know your thoughts before I tell you my formula, is I think jewelry is often made because of how we want to see ourselves or how we do see ourselves, whether it's a certain style or certain type of character, or sometimes we envision a future scenario where like, we're going to wear this piece, or even a past thing, like something that commemorates our past. So would you agree with that assessment?
100%. Like, you're right on target. Like, people buy jewelry because of desire. So because it's a desired purchase, right? So it might mean like commemorating a loved one or a past experience. Like, the more you can position that, it might be a status play. It might be something to like give you that like a certain feeling that you're trying to generate. So the feelings can like run the gamut, right? Like from anything from like confidence to sexiness to flirtiness to all the things. So there's a very specific angle that any jewelry brand could lean into based on like why someone would buy that particular product. I think people who buy like maybe, and you think of like that, remember that TV show Dynasty you might be too young, but like from the 80s or 90s or.
Oh, I watched it with my parents.
The old one. Like they were always dripping, like the people in Dallas, always dripping in those like amazing, like, or like Elizabeth Taylor is a good example. Her collection, she had these amazing jewels. Like no one really wears jewelry like that. And the people that do only buy it because it's a status symbol, right? Like that's a good example.
You brought up the perfect example, because I'm going to talk about basically that. So if we go into it assuming it's this desire purchase, we want to paint a very descriptive picture for them about like that's reflecting back to them what they want to see either in themselves or for their future in one sentence in this headline. So let me give you an example from Majuri. Am I saying that brand name right?
Mejuri, Majuri?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this I pulled from one of the product descriptions, but it could be a headline. Looking like a French girl isn't as difficile as it seems.
That is great.
Yeah.
That's so good. Majority's brand. Yeah.
It's like, do you notice this is about our identity? It's basically what you were describing, like people with that status thing. And it's confirming for the buyer how she sees herself or how she wants to see herself. So when you use my Step Into You formula, which I'm going to break down for them in a minute,
let's do it.
You need super specific. You can't just be like, be a precious flower. I mean, you could, but God.
Or
right?
For busy moms, like that's a lot of moms are busy. So it's a little bit too general. So if you can get more specific.
Yeah, I wish the audience had seen my face on that one. The eye roll was big. Like if you're
Well,
listening.
they'll see it when they're watching the video. So,
okay. Let's start out this formula. It's so easy, Tracy. I think people are going to love it. You're going to start out the sentence with this phrase, become the blank. And then you fill in the blank with a specific type of character. So let me give you some examples. Like become the Lady Gaga, but there's more. So you figure out this character, and then you're going to add an aspiration after it. So become the Lady Gaga you've always dreamed, or become the most graceful woman at your 25th high school reunion, or become that effortlessly chic woman who's always turning heads. And you can play around with this. It's going to depend on your brand voice and brand style. Like if you are selling $25,000 pieces, what I just said is not going to work. But let's give a completely different example that you could tweak. You had Katie Seller on from Metal Marvels.
yes.
And she very, very different jewelry brand, right?
Yeah.
Then say like Kendra Scott or Cartier. She swears a lot. Mm-hmm. And she could turn this on her head. And before I do this, can I swear on this?
Yeah,
podcast?
let's do it.
Okay. So hers could be become that bitch and own it every fucking day.
Yeah.
Because it's on brand for her, right?
So good. We should give it to text her after. Someone came up, Reese came up with a headline.
Yeah, I've got a headline for you. So let me just repeat it for these guys who are listening. Become that, or become the, and then fill in that picture of this person, this persona, and then the aspiration afterward. Go play with this.
So fun. We'll have that little caption, that little formula in the show notes. So make sure that you check it out. Okay, awesome. So what is one tip that our listeners could use to actually improve their headlines and their marketing?
I think the best tip that I have is pause this episode, go grab a piece of paper and like a pen or a pencil. Don't do this with your keyboard, because I really believe when we write with our hands, it taps into something different in our brain. And I want you to go brainstorm based on either your brand or a specific product or a few products, 10 different headlines that use this formula. But then what I want you to do is I want you to take a hot minute, go take a walk with your phone and start talking into your phone a few more, because verbalize it. Sometimes really good stuff comes out that won't when we feel locked up with writing it down. So just don't edit yourself. Just get this stuff, do a brain dump, go back and edit later. And here's the beauty of this tip, Tracy. It's like my little Trojan horse for your audience, for them to really begin thinking, who is their ideal customer? What does she want? Right? So it's built right into this formula. Is a lot of people don't think this through, like who exactly am I talking to and what does this customer care about? This formula gets you started in that thinking process.
That is amazing. I love it. That's such a great tip. Okay. And I want to just like reiterate that, because there's something really powerful about the hand to writing, like writing on a piece of paper versus like trying to type things out on a keypad or something like that. Like it really does make a total shift in things. And also like helps you be, I don't know, get into more of a stream of consciousness or something like that. I don't know. What do you think?
I do. And I don't know what it is, but something in my brain will like lock up on the keyboard that feels more free when I just write by hand. Mm-hmm. I just feel more free. I don't edit myself as much.
That's true. Yeah, totally. And you're like, oh, I can just revise it later. So what are some of the places that you can use headlines to actually connect with your customers? So there's so many, I'm sure.
There's a ton, but here's a few key ones. I mentioned that top of your homepage, especially where a lot of people will have like a big promotional banner, but you can use headlines even as you scroll down your homepage to have like things that the eyes can grab on. And here's like another tip I want to sneak in is that when we look at search engine optimization and what Google wants what people want. And what people want these days is something that's super fast for them on their phone. And when you use headlines that way to break up text, so it's not like long tomes of text, you're helping give people what they want. And so you're helping giving Google what they want. So that's like, use them all over your homepage, but also your about page. It should not just say about Tracy Matthews. You can use a headline there. You can use it in an email subject line. You can use it in your Instagram captions. You could use it to start as the very first sentence of your product description to grab people.
Yep. So good. So many places. And I think everyone can use like better subject or headlines or things to stop the scroll. Anytime someone's like scrolling on their phone, so that all the placements that you just mentioned are good, but especially I think also in your social media captions, which is so powerful. Cause I know a lot of people get stuck on what to write there. You know, I love this. Like, I love the formula that you gave before, because it's so powerful. You could even start it off like, hey, you know, become the blah, blah, blah with this da, da, da. And you could do that for like different pieces of jewelry that kind of fit the different personas of your brand.
Brilliant. Yeah. And then it might also help you get started writing the rest of the caption. You're like, hey, now that I've got my start, I'm good to go. And you know what else, Tracy? Think about like emails we get in our inbox. Imagine if you got one, this is a little bit of a riff off my formula, but it can show you like the flexibility. Imagine if you got one that was like, be a Diana in a world of Kardashians, which is something I've heard.
So good.
But what if you turned it on your head and you were like, be yourself instead of Insta famous? Like maybe your brand is actually about not being anyone else, but being your own damn self. Imagine an email subject line. I would open that.
That is so good. Be yourself instead of
Insta famous.
That's really good. The Diana Kardashians one was really good too. Like, love it. Okay. When should people avoid, right? I mean, I don't know. I liked it because I'm like, oh, that's like very specific. And I'm totally visualizing it right now. I just watched like one of those Netflix things where I like binge watched the whole Diana series, or I don't know if it was Netflix or Amazon Prime or something.
So Diana's been on your mind anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. Thinking about it, like, yeah, totally. Anyway, so back to the copy. What should people avoid when writing headlines, and what do you think they should do instead?
Okay. So we talked just now, you were like, that was really specific. So what you want to avoid is being general and using like these overused words. And I'm so curious, Tracy, if you see these a lot in your industry. Lovely, beautiful, unique, and special.
Mm-hmm. Unique jewelry for the individual person. Like that's like, I feel like probably a lot of people, no offense if you have that, but it's
and I work with people who have that, and I feel great compassion for them, because it's very hard for people to wrap their head around this. And they're like, my jewelry is unique. And I said, but if you were on the phone with me, like you asked Tracy what you should do instead. So if you were on the phone with me or Tracy, and you were telling me about one of your pieces, you had to describe it to me, like, so I could see it, because you and I aren't looking face to face. What would you tell me about that piece? You wouldn't tell me it's unique. You'd have to find some way to describe it to me, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, if there's no video or no way to visually see it, it's hard to. And here's what I would say about that. It's like, you're not standing out if you're just trying to use the same words that everyone else is using. I mean, you could use words like that, but there's like more descriptive words that you can. I love the idea of just like calling out who it's for. I think that's super helpful, and digging really deep into even like finding a word that describes like your design aesthetic, or a short phrase or something like that. That's really specific, can be super helpful. I love that.
It's hard work. Like I have empathy for people, the jewelers listening, doing this work. It's not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to be done with this episode and I've got it. You're going to have to dig, I think. But I think it's worth it. Like, I hate to use a pun here, but it's going to be like mining for gold for you.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to tell people to avoid that I think would be helpful is you don't want to sound too formal. So so many of us have it drilled into us from like our 8th grade English teachers to write a certain way, but you want to really write the way that you talk. And the way you can fix this is like, sit down, do your headlines. And remember earlier, I said, even talk some out into your phone, like into your recorder. But when you're done writing, I want you to do this with all your copy, whether it's your headline, your product descriptions, read it out loud to yourself. Where do you stumble? Where do you say, God, I sound like a robot? That's where you need to like fine tune your copy a bit.
So true, which is good. And this is, another thing you keep saying, like, this is really hard work. One of the things that I would recommend is like finding someone you could bounce the ideas off of, or hiring a copywriter, or getting coached by someone like Reese or something like that, or being part of our community, of course, like where we're digging into their brand with the coaches and stuff like that, where they can take a look at what you're doing and like help pull out of you, like what it is that you actually stand for, and like help you put the stakes in the ground and develop the core messaging and all that stuff. Because sometimes when you're so close to it, it's really hard to think outside of the box. And I can't emphasize that enough. Last year, we just went through, I hired a consultant to come and like take a look at our messaging and dig deep. And like, we were doing so many things wrong. They're kind of like, yeah, you need to be more specific. You need to do this. They helped us like really dig deep into all these different avatars that we have and people that we could serve in the industry and the market. And it was all this stuff that I didn't even think about before. And I was like, duh, why didn't I think about this? So it's a really good idea to get like people who aren't attached or close to your situation to give you outside feedback, because it can really be helpful.
It can. And if it helps anyone hearing this, I'm a copywriter who brings in copywriters to help me with my stuff, because of what Tracy just said. Is I'm too close to things to know what's going to be powerful, effective, what's going to connect with people. So even people who do this for a living will get professional help. So if you're trying my exercises and feeling badly about yourself, don't. It's normal to have it very hard to do your own marketing because you just lack that objectivity, and it's nothing wrong with you. Like Tracy had that issue, I did too. So if that's you and you're listening, it's okay.
Totally okay. So Reese, this was super informative and amazing. Where can everyone find you?
Well, they can find me over on my site. And if it's cool with you, I've got a free gift that I'd love to offer them. All right. They can check out my 10 common mistakes that lose them leads and sales, and how they can fix them fast. And you can get that on my site at designbyreese.com/fixes, FIXES. And you know what? After you sign up and you get one of my emails, go ahead and reply to me. I reply to pretty much every email I receive. So I'd love to hear from you. If you had a question about anything I talked about on the show, like shoot me a note and I'll see if I can help you work through it.
Amazing. Reese, thanks so much for being here today. You are a rock star.
Oh, thank you. Conversation and always bouncing things off at you, with you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much for watching this episode today. This is Tracy Matthews signing off until next time. But before I do, here is your official invitation. If you haven't done so yet, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you hit that little notification bell so you're notified when we release new videos. And if you're a jewelry designer or product maker who really wants to scale their sales to multiple 6 or even 7 figures and beyond, and grow a profitable, successful lifestyle jewelry brand of any size, here's your invitation to download a free chapter of my book, The Desire Brand Effect: Stand Out in a Saturated Market with a Timeless Jewelry Brand. All you have to do is head on over to desiredbrandeffect.com/chapter 1. Grab your free chapter today and enjoy, and then tell me what you think. All right, this is Tracy signing off. Until next time, see you soon.